Welcome to Thrive Deeper, the podcast based on the Thrive Bible Reading Guide. This is the ongoing conversation about God's Word with Thrive's author, Dr. Matthew Jacoby, and your host, DJ Payne.
G'day and welcome to episode 86 of Thrive Deeper. It's your old pal DJ Payne here, and on this week's episode, Matthew Jacoby and myself sit down in our new studio. It's slowly progressing, by the way, and we cover Genesis chapters 42 through to 47. This is the story of Joseph in Egypt and the other brothers, the other sons of Israel coming to see him, and the back and forth that they have as we get to this climax to the story of Joseph. Now, if you're anything like me, this is one of the most emotional stories in the Bible, so you might have to grab that box of Kleenex, the box of tissues next to you as we go through, because I think every time that Joseph runs out of a room to cry, I'm grabbing a tissue as well and crying with him, so be prepared. It's an emotional episode, this episode. Enjoy. You, good sir, are in Israel.
I am in Israel. Third trip for me.
Yes.
Second trip with leading a tour. I am just like a pig in mud. I mean, probably the wrong metaphor, but I love being
especially
there.
For Jewish people who don't eat pork.
That's right. I love it there. I learn so much every time I go, and because I love it, I love showing other people as well. And I love the history. I love the connection between the land and the history, and connecting the geography to the text, and this is why this, and this is why this, and remember how they couldn't dislodge the people here. Well, look at those hills, and all of that. It's all of that stuff that I really love. So I'll be doing more. Do
you think this is going to be a yearly thing from now on for you?
And look, may even open it up wider. I mean, if any of our listeners are keen on that, I mean, let us know. And because I love going, and I mean, I'm not making any promises, but
you don't make a promise. Let me dream wildly instead. Yeah. Thrive Deeper, the podcast live from Israel.
Okay, we'll see about that.
I'm just trying to get a free ticket over to Israel. What am I? No.
So I'm actually in the beginning stages of planning one for 2021 as well. So.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
All this podcasting equipment is very portable. I can fit it all in a suitcase.
Right.
Let's go. No, that's very exciting. So I would encourage everybody to follow Matt Jacoby on social media. Now, the only social media that you really have anymore is Facebook. Yeah,
well, maybe I should do an Instagram.
Get some Instagram.
This might be my moment.
Yeah, all right.
I do have an Instagram, but maybe I'll stick some photos up there. This will be my moment. That's a good, because I've never really used Instagram.
There we go.
But this is maybe my moment to start.
There we go. Thrive listeners, go follow Matt on Instagram. What's your Instagram account?
Oh, I don't know. Okay. Matthew Jacoby.
Something around. I will find and put a link in the show notes.
Yeah,
all right,
good,
you can find a link in the show notes. If you head over to our Facebook page as well, I'll make sure I get the links to.
Maybe I'll put some stuff on on the Thrive Deeper Facebook page as well.
I like it. Look at Matt getting all social media savvy on us. All right, let's leave social media behind, but let's not leave Israel behind. Let's go over to Israel here in Genesis chapter 42. We are wrapping up we're in the last two episodes of the book of Genesis, and we are in the life of Joseph. Now, the other thing that I find absolutely amazing with the book of Genesis, as we sort of at a bird's eye level here, the first 6 chapters go through eons of time in a blink, right? By the end of it, and then we get Abraham sort of slows down the life of Abraham, and then it seems to slow down a bit slower.
Yeah.
So now we're in the book of Joseph, in the story of Joseph. At the end of the book, we have great detail and great insight. The stories are getting more and more depth. Why do you think it's structured that way?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because you would think that verse 57, the last verse of 41, that'd be a good ending for the book, or at least, with some of the blessings of Jacob at the end. But of course, I mean, it raises there's still the fulfillment to be seen of Joseph's dreams, isn't there?
Yes.
And it's interesting, though, that this is given the length that it has, because we have quite a lengthy section of him as looking like he's playing cat and mouse with his brothers. They come, he doesn't reveal his identity to them. He, accuses them of being spies, makes them terrified, asks them about their younger brother, holds one of them hostage, Simeon, sends them back to get the younger brother, Benjamin. When you get Benjamin, I'll give Simeon back to you. What?
We get 5 chapters. We get 5 chapters devoted to this story.
Yeah.
Now, the story takes...
Which is a lot of space in Genesis.
A lot of space in Genesis. I mean, for crying out loud, the entire prehistory is in 6 chapters.
Yeah.
This is 5 chapters. But let me just say, it's one of my favourite stories. It is like a script for an amazing movie because it goes over years. Yeah. It goes over a length of time. We don't know exactly how long it is, but it is at least months or maybe a year or so over a long time. And it's the story, it's the culmination of this story, of this heartbreaking, emotional story of Joseph and his family. And it's also the tail end of Jacob made Israel, with the 12 tribes and everything.
Well, first of all, there's a number of things to say about this, and I'll talk to why it's given so much length. First of all, the famine has reached where they are as well in Canaan. So they are sent by Jacob to Egypt. Apparently there's this guy in Egypt, and we can go to him. And so they go down to Egypt, and it says in verse 6 that when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. So straight away, there's the fulfillment of Joseph's dreams. Okay,
and right away, Joseph makes a decision. He recognizes them straight away. His 10 older brothers, he recognizes straight away, and he 2 things to keep in mind, because it's sort of introduced different parts of the story. We have to keep in mind that these Hebrews, are despised by Egyptians. Yeah. These guys are dirty shepherds, creepy weirdos from the desert, not civilized Egyptians, godly people we are. Yeah. So there's that. They do not recognize Joseph. Joseph was 17 when they last saw him. Joseph is now nearly 40.
Yeah.
And
probably for the full makeup and headdress and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. He looks like an Egyptian.
Yeah. And they wore makeup.
Yes. Yeah. And beautifully, and he's up on a stage, and he's surrounded by staff and everything like that. And they were probably too scared to even look at him, for crying out loud. Plus, he's speaking another language.
Yeah.
And they are speaking a different language to the Egyptians. The Egyptians are speaking one language, they're speaking another, and he doesn't speak to them in their own language.
Yeah, he hasn't spoken that for a long, long time.
But he understands what they're saying. We hear that he understands. When they're talking amongst themselves, he understands what they're saying. Yeah. And also, it's all come flooding back to him, the prophecy, the dreams. He remembers everything. And all the worry, all the concern about his father and his younger brother are all there.
Okay. So it says in verse 8, although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Okay. Then verse 9, then he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, you are spies. You have come to see where our land is unprotected. Okay. So now he's going to implicate them, and this is where he's going to say, I'm going to hold... so that I know that you're telling the truth. I'm going to hold your brother hostage. And this is where you get this whole cat and mouse thing.
Amazing.
And to add to that, he puts the silverware in their bags so that they're further implicated.
Well, I think the first time, and again, I can almost imagine Joseph's aides around him, because he's a head of a huge staff here. And all of a sudden they're used to these people coming in, getting food, working out an arrangement, working up some sort of sale, some sort of arrangement with Egypt. And for Joseph all of a sudden to go, you spies. I can imagine the rest of the stuff going, what is going on?
Yeah.
How is he reckon? What's going? Like they're all sort of wondering, and his brothers are devastated. They're like, what are you talking about? We're right here to want to buy grain from you. So he puts them through their paces. He allows them to buy the grain, but he makes sure that his aides put back all the coins that they were buying the grain for. He puts the coins back in the top of their bags as they head back to Egypt. Yeah. And then we get this amazing story. Like they're rattled. They are really rattled because he's asking tell me about your father. Yeah. Tell me have you got any brothers at home? You know, like right. Really.
I mean, he wants to find out about. He also doesn't want to charge them for that. Like, I mean, there's something genuine for Joseph that he doesn't want to take the money, but they can't know yet why he doesn't want to take the money from them. Yeah. So the question is, I mean, initially he says, send one of you back to get your little brother. And then he changes the plan and says, well, I'll hold the older brother here. You all go back. And
Matt, we get this incredible scene. This is one of my favorite scenes of him pulling them to the side, and he understands what they're saying when they speak amongst themselves. He understands exactly. Yeah. And you get this picture where he keeps walking out the door, standing on the side of the door and listening and hearing what they're saying. He can hear what they're saying. And we get this incredible scene because he's made a point of asking about father, asking about younger brother and everything like that, because he's thinking, my goodness, if they got rid of me like this, did it kill my father? Did my father die of heartbreak when I was gone? And what did they do with my little brother Benjamin if after I was gone, what did they do to him, type of thing. So these are the questions that's plagued him for 15 years. Longer.
That's very true.
Longer. So he hides around the door. We get the brothers talking, then we get Reuben going, I told you so. Yeah. Like, you idiot, this is all happening because of Joseph. This is all happening because this is God bringing it down on us. And Joseph standing on the other side of the doorway, having to keep running away and cry. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And I think that is what and again, just speaking to the purpose of this, and we talked about the space that this is given, essentially, first of all, what Joseph isn't doing is getting retribution. No. He's not playing cat and mouse with them in order to punish them for what they did. No. Actually, on the contrary, what he's doing here, and this is why I think this is given so much space, is that he is giving them the opportunity to get it right the next time. He's actually giving them the opportunity to redeem themselves in the ordinary sense, not in the theological sense, to redeem themselves because, let's face it, so first of all, the circumstances bring to mind what they did in the first place. Now, that's a good thing. It's like, okay, they remember, okay, there's something that's lain dormant there in their consciences. So he wants to bring this to the surface. And because this is going to be forgiven, he's going to forgive that. Oh. Okay. But it needs to be brought to the surface first.
Everyone needs to be on the same page.
And so it's been brought to the surface, and now they're going to have an opportunity to essentially make the same kind of decision again. Now think about it. Simeon is put in jail.
Yeah. He's with a snap of his fingers, Joseph in front of them, the guards come, grab Simeon, tie them up in front of him, and he says, right, he's going to prison. I'm holding him hostage until you bring the other members of your family before me. And it's like, now you understand that this is, I hate to use the word scheme, but this is a scheme of Joseph. Yeah. Because how else can he say, it's me, Joseph, I want to see if Benjamin's still alive. So he's worked out this plan, and it's testing them on multiple levels. Are they just going to go home and say, Simeon's dead? Yeah. That type of thing. So they do that. They leave. They're like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? They've got Simeon. We go back with all the sacks of the grain. That night on the way home on the back of the donkeys, one of them goes, I'll just check the grain for the donkeys. Yeah. All our payments are still in it. No one had been charged. All the money that they had brought was still in their sacks. Yeah. Now they're looking at each other going, we can't go back. Yeah. We can't, what is going to, it's testing them on so many different levels.
So are they going to abandon their brother? Yeah. There's obviously been a bit of, Benjamin is the favourite. Yes. Really. So the beginning of the first test is they get back to Israel. They get back to Jacob, and they tell the truth. Yeah. They say, look, this guy,
He was asking a lot of questions, and he's kept Simeon. And Jacob, we find out that Jacob in his old age becomes his theatrical.
Yeah.
Over the, woe is me. You've taken, like he's, blaming God and everything like this. But they together, Jacob being still the head of the home, they don't run back to grab Simeon. They stay at home.
Oh, yeah, they stay.
They stay until all the food is gone. Yeah. And in fact, you see from the older brother, you see from Judah and Reuben, that we fast forward, whether it's months or whatever it's been, that they should have gone back weeks ago. They're like, Dad, we're starving. We've got to go back. And if we go back, we've got to take Benjamin.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you can see that Jacob is saying, no, let's wait another. Let's just starve a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And finally, it gets to the place where Jacob relents and says, okay, and Judah swears by his family. Reuben has sworn by his two sons. They've all sworn that they're gonna be responsible for Benjamin no matter what. Judah in particular,
Judah takes responsibility. Like they've got to go back.
Yes.
And because they've got to get food. Yeah. If we're going to go back, we have to take Benjamin with us. Yeah. Now this could, in one sense, this could be their opportunity to get rid of Benjamin if they think that he,
that's it.
If they think that he's the favorite, which he is.
It's a high gamble by Joseph.
But this is where Judah, and this is the interesting thing about the role of Judah in this story. This is where I think has this redemptive. They're being given the opportunity, and they get there eventually to redeem themselves. So they go back, they get the food. He meets Benjamin. They leave. The cup, Joseph's cup.
Well, that interaction when they finally get there. Okay, so Jacob, and I'm sorry, I'm burdening with everybody, but the details. But I love this story so much. Yeah. So finally, Jacob, Israel says, "Okay, you got to go back. You got to take Benjamin with me. You got to get Simeon back.
Yeah.
All right, take the best of what we've got. Take the spices, the herbs. Yeah. Take the honey.
Much,
they wouldn't have much, but they took the very best that they could muster. Yeah. The best crafts and everything that they could. Take that with him and show him that we're sincere. Take the money that we paid for the first time and extra money and money for a new lot. Like take abundance of money." And so they are panicking. They are so terrified when they rock up to Egypt with Benjamin.
Yeah.
It finally happens, and they meet him straight away. The Joseph's team meets him and says, "Right, you're having dinner with me today."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That terrifies them even more.
Yeah.
They are like, "Oh, we're set up.
We're having dinner now. This is..." Yeah. And there were plenty of stories in ancient Egypt of people killing their enemies at feasts.
Exactly. So come and have a feast with me. Okay.
It actually, and those stories would have been, commonly known. So they're thinking, we're done for.
Yeah.
Now, as it turns out, it isn't the case, and they're sent back. Interestingly, he doesn't actually eat with them because, again, he's Egyptian and they're Hebrews.
He's not allowed to. I love the fact that Joseph's right-hand man, so Joseph gets his right-hand man to take them into Joseph's palace, and straight away the brothers are like, "Listen, man, when we came here the first time, our money was still..." Straight away they're pleading. They're like, "Dude, please." And his guy basically is like, "Relax. Don't worry about it. No charge. It's all good."
Yeah.
But he makes a point. He makes a point there. This is Joseph's right-hand man. Your God, the God of your ancestors, must have put it there. Through Joseph's right-hand man,
which is what Joseph wants to get across. That he's not charging them for the he's giving them this, and it's God's provision for them. So that actually is very true. I think that's an enormously significant comment there because it really describes that God is blessing them here. Yeah. The climax of the story is the next bit. Oh. And again, there's this back and forth thing that's happening here, but what it does is that it serves to highlight the climax because finally they head back.
It's like an amazing movie. I can't get past the fact that this is an amazing movie. And again, it's so human. It's so human because Joseph is playing it so cool. Yep. And when he finally sees Benjamin, you can almost feel Joseph biting his lip through an interpreter going, "Oh, yes, young man. God has blessed, and then we see he has to run into his bedroom, weep that he's seen his brother, and then,
I know.
Okay, wash my face. Okay, come back.
That's right.
It's so human.
So he sends them back, and he puts each man's silver
Again.
back into his sack. He's not going to take the money. And again, this is, God is wanting to bless them. They're just not quite getting this message because they're not recognizing him, and there's something significant about that. But he puts his own cup, and in Egyptian households would have a household cup, and this wouldn't be the case with Joseph, but these ceremonial cups would have been used for divination. And Joseph is going to play the role, but of a typical Egyptian here. But he puts this cup in Benjamin's sack, right? So when it's discovered, so they go off, and then they get chased after, and the sacks gets searched.
Yep.
And the cup is in Benjamin's sack. Now this is where, Judah now has the opportunity to redeem himself.
Good.
This is the climax of the story, because they go back, and Judah tells them the whole story, and he says, this could be their opportunity to rid themselves of their rival, right?
Yep.
This is the redeeming thing. This could be the opportunity. Oh, what a great way to get rid of Benjamin. Well, he stole the cup. We'll leave him behind, and we'll go back to our father, and we'll tell our father, sorry, but Benjamin's died. No, actually, Judah says, take me instead of him. He says it. He pleads before Joseph, take me instead of him. This is this moment of redemption, right? And I think it's significant that it's Judah, because Judah is going to become the tribe of Judah and the Jewish people. And so there's this beautiful redemptive moment. And then it says in beginning of verse 5, then Joseph could no longer control himself. And he gets rid of everyone, and he just collapses, doesn't he? He weeps and weeps, and this is and I'm getting emotional just thinking about this, because he just can't bear it. And I think he's emotional not only because it's his brothers, but because they've got it right, this is what he was going for. He's like, I was testing you to see whether you would do all of that all over again. And Judah's that climactic moment when Judah says, take me instead of Benjamin. When he could have had every reason to give Benjamin up, he does the opposite thing. And Joseph is this moment of, you got it. You got it. You've done the right thing. I just think it's a stunning moment in the story.
Consider this a little emotional break here in the middle of the episode. You got some time to splash some water on your face and get it together here. Oh my goodness, the story of Joseph at the end gets me every time. Well, listen, if you are loving the episodes of Thrive Deeper and you're enjoying listening as we go through these books of the Bible together, Matthew and myself, let me tell you about the actual reading guide itself. The little book of Thrive that comes out quarterly every year, and you can take it and read along the scriptures with you. Look, we know that some people are enjoying the podcast and don't really read along with the book. That's fine. But I really want to encourage you. At the beginning of 2020, I've got a special offer for you, the Thrive Deeper listeners. All right? If you're not already a subscriber to the Thrive Bible Reading Guide, I want you to take advantage of this exclusive offer just for you, okay? You can subscribe for 12 months to either the printed booklet, which is what I highly recommend, mailed to your home, or if you're living in the future and you want that ebook edition, you want that electronic edition of Thrive, you can do either one and you'll save $10. Okay, so that means that your first year subscription is only $22. That is for the mailed edition sent to your door, or $10 for the ebook edition. That is a great price. $22 for 4 copies mailed to your door, or $10 for the ebook edition. It's amazing. Listen, the offer ends on Valentine's Day, February the 14th. Valentine's Day is when the offer ends. So you've got from now until February the 14th to get involved in the offer. All you need to do is follow the link from the Thrive Today website, thrivetoday.net.au. You add your subscription to the shopping cart at the checkout, enter the coupon Thrive Today. The coupon code that you want to write down right now, Thrive Today, all one word, Thrive Today. Enter that into that shopping cart and you will save $10 off a subscription to the Thrive Daily Reading Guide. Do it. This is the year to do it, to read along with us every day and join in the journey of Thrive. All right, now talking about that journey, let's get back into the episode and back to the story of Joseph. Thrive Deeper, episode 86. It's DJ and Matt, your old pals, your trekkers through the book of Genesis. Oh boy, I am doing a Joseph right here. I've had to run away, splash water on my face, stop the weeping and come back. This gets me emotional every time. It is so heartbreaking. And like you say, Matt, we read through these 5 chapters of this cat and mouse story with Joseph and his brothers, and Jacob and Benjamin as well. Simeon sitting there in prison, back and forth, all this thing, and Joseph playing a complicated game, all to let his brothers rise. His hope is that they will rise to the occasion. Yeah. He's playing a risky game because they could not have learned everything, and Benjamin's life is at stake here. But it's a reasonable gamble, because you think if they decide to give up Benjamin, and
Joseph's still in charge. Yeah.
Joseph's still in charge. He might let them go as strangers, but then at least he's got his brother. Yeah. And he might reveal himself to his brother, and away we go. We don't know any of that. We don't know any of that. We don't know what was happening. But finally, when Judah steps up and Judah tells the entire story factually, honestly, truthfully.
Yeah, it's like a moment of confession, really. It's beautiful.
And he takes responsibility. He rises up and takes responsibility for the entire family. Yeah. He takes responsibility for their perceived death of Joseph and how that affected his father. They take responsibility for Benjamin. He says, like, the life of my father, Jacob, it's tied up to the life of this younger son.
That's right.
If you do anything to him, our father is dead, type of thing. And so it builds up to this emotional crescendo. Yeah. And then in chapter 45, we get it's a damn release of emotion for Joseph.
Yeah, it is. And it comes at the point where Judah says, "Take me instead of him." Yeah. It's unbelievable. And I mean, that's so theologically rich, even, because there is a prophetic moment. This is this prophetic story, that's full of this typology that's anticipating the ultimate fulfillment of the covenant, and the fact, and I think there's even a lesson in the fact that God, through Joseph, is giving these boys a chance to get it right this time. I think this is what God does. It's like at the point of your greatest failure, it's quite likely that God is going to give you a chance to actually redeem yourself in the ordinary sense, again, not in the theological sense of win your own salvation, but to actually get it right the next time. And this is what happens here. And Judah actually steps in and he does get it right. And it's important that it's Judah, because Judah is going to be the tribe from whom Israel's kings are going to come and from whom ultimately the Messiah is going to come. So it is important that it's Judah is the one, essentially the one from whom the Messiah is going to come, that he should be the one that says, take me instead of him. I mean, that's so it's so prophetic, that in itself. And then, of course, Joseph reveals himself, and he says in verse 4, then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no plowing or reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance."
Unbelievable.
Talk about prophetic. This is just so beautifully prophetic. So,
and the shocked, like, I can't imagine. You know, we don't hear much from the brothers here.
Yeah.
In this bit, we hear they're stunned. They're stunned into utter silence. Like, their whole lives would be turned upside down. Everything that they thought was one way was another. Everything that they thought was completely wrong.
Yeah.
And they are, you couldn't imagine, like, this, you know, second in charge Pharaoh coming down, taking off the thing and saying, "It's me, your brother," speaking in their language, gathering to them, saying, you know, his first question is my father alive? Like, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
So he sends them back. I mean, Pharaoh hears about this and just loads them up with gifts and, you know, sends them back. They go back to Jacob. Understandably, Jacob is completely, can't believe what he's hearing.
My favourite line in all of this, and this to me reads like a joke. This reads like Joseph has a sense of humour. When he sends them off with all the wagons, all the stuff, everything, hurry, go back, grab.
Partly because they're going to need proof.
Yes.
That it actually is Joseph,
Take all this stuff. And he says, as he called after them as they're going, it says he called after them, "Now don't quarrel along the way." That to me is hilarious. That's like
no blaming. Don't blame each other.
Don't repeat the before. That is hilarious. That to me is Joseph being really, really funny. They left off, and we see them, and the only sense that we get from them is they then have the really hard job of convincing old Jacob, old Israel, your son is really alive.
Yeah.
And with that comes the implication that they have to then tell Dad the complete truth of what happened.
Yeah, I know. That's an interesting one. Yeah.
Now, we don't get that sort of...
I know, but implicitly...
Implicitly reply... And I think we see patterns of that in what we read from Jacob at the end of the chapter. But, like, this is old Jacob, old Israel, the old deceiver himself, the father of all these people, and whoever's left in the whole thing having to go back.
I think in the end, actually, Jacob still holds Reuben responsible for that. Yeah. You know, in the end. Like, you know, there's forgiveness, but there's consequences, you know, for that. And, so they go back. He's convinced by all the stuff that they bring back. And, of course, then he goes up into Egypt. Now, this is important because this is how the Israelites end up in Egypt, because at the start of the book of Exodus, so Pharaoh gives them land in Egypt. Interestingly, so that he's on his way, God reveals himself. "I'm going to make you a great nation. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you back again." Now, this is important because, you know, a long time later, they're going to be enslaved in Egypt, but God has promised to bring them back to the land.
And it also echoes the promises that a younger Jacob got in his travels back and forth about the land and everything like that. And I love the fact...
And the family, by the way, numbers 70.
I was going to say, that was my next point. Including Joseph and his sons, the complete family of Jacob is 70 people.
So you just think, something's being set up here. You know, there's 70 of them in Egypt. And he says to Pharaoh, and it's interesting here because Joseph still... He basically procures them the land of Goshen, which is interesting because it's kind of on the way out. Like it's sort of towards that direction because, again, there's this promise that they're going to go back. It enables them to be separate, and of course that suits because they're shepherds. And interestingly, Joseph says, "My family are shepherds. Yep. How about we take this separate land?"
Yes. And so, like it says, we get told multiple times, shepherds despised in the land of Egypt.
So they have this separate area, and I think that's important because it enables them to stay separate, to hold on to their faith, to not completely assimilate, so that when, by the time of Moses' life, you still have a Hebrews with a Hebrew faith and a Hebrew identity. Now, what we're going to see is that God's going to bless them so much there in the land of Goshen that they're going to become a threat, and Pharaoh to come is going to enslave them. But as we come into 47, and we see, interestingly, that Jacob, when he comes into Pharaoh's house, it says in verse 7, then Joseph brought his father Jacob in and presented him before Pharaoh. And then what it says Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh asked him, hold it. Jacob blessed Pharaoh.
Yeah.
I mean, you think it'd be the other way around.
Yes.
But remember, Jacob is the mediator of God's blessing. I mean, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then, it says that twice, in fact.
Yeah.
In verse 10, then Jacob blessed Pharaoh again and went out from his presence.
Yeah.
So it's like this role here it's so, a perceptive reader of the text will say, this is the fulfillment of the promise.
Yes.
Because Joseph is this, has been exalted to this place. Jacob, whose name is Israel, is blessing the king of Egypt.
Yeah,
it's just stunning.
And you get the sense of this beautiful warmth between Pharaoh, between Joseph and his family, even though they are like Pharaoh says, if there's any special skills, like let's establish you, anything you need, like all that warmth to them. He's happy to set the land, because I think Pharaoh is wise enough to already be thinking, old man, I've been blessed by you already through your son.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You have no idea, we're here because of your son. So he's happy to see them established, together there. It's a beautiful, beautiful finishing here to 47. And then we get the culmination of the 7 years of famine.
Yeah.
And Joseph's incredible wisdom throughout all of that and how he manages
And
it.
he basically makes all of the world the vassals of Egypt. So Egypt kind of buys the land, essentially. So Egypt actually owns, and I think even here, there is this kind of prophetic picture of the kingdom of God covering the whole earth. So because of Joseph, this kingdom over which Joseph is in charge, he actually takes possession of all of the kingdoms around. And I think that anticipates something future. There's something prophetic about that.
It could also mean, if I read it negatively, we also get, that could be the seeds of, now I don't mean literal seeds, but there's literal seeds in the story. As Joseph, the Hebrew, sets up a special land for his Hebrew people, he is happy to have countries and people enslaved and indebted to Egypt, except for the Hebrew people.
Yeah.
So that, and again, that's something historically, if we don't want to get down that track, but this is almost like preempting some sort of the rest of the world looking on going, I don't like this special blessing that's over here.
Yeah.
And we see that, fast forward.
So it certainly is commendatory of Joseph in this. Joseph is exercising this kind of Solomonic wisdom so that he takes possessions of all, basically he takes possessions of all of the nations. Think Psalm 2. Yeah. So in this kind of messianic way, he takes possessions of these nations, he then gives this special plot to the Israelites,
and he sets up a tax for the rest of time for Egypt that Pharaoh takes 20%.
Yeah, that's
of
right.
everything that you do.
And I think that's important because when they go back to the land, God's only going to ask 10% of them.
Yeah.
I think even that is a background. It's like the yoke is easy, as it's like they come out from Egypt and they go into the land, and whereas Pharaoh asked for 20%, God's only asking for 10%. I think there's something there as well. There's so many threads
Oh,
here
huge.
that tie
Yes.
into Exodus. So
Yes.
many threads that tie into Exodus, and I think
Setting
that's
up.
one of them. The percentage here. Here it's 20%. Pharaoh's asking 20%. God's only going to ask 10%. And then of course, and we'll finish with this. Verse 27. Now the Israelites settled in Egypt in the region of Goshen. They acquired property there and were fruitful and increased greatly in number. And of course, that's the fulfillment of the promise as well. So
we see Jacob living to 147
that's right.
years
Yeah.
old,
Yeah.
Before he passes away. So he had 17 years.
Yeah, and him saying to Joseph,
Yeah.
I want to be buried in the cave of Machpelah with my ancestors. So even at the end of Jacob's life, you've got that it's already anticipating the fact that they are going to return to the promised land. It's a given.
Yeah.
It's a given. It's an amazing story.
Oh.
And I at so many levels am inspired by this story because there is just it's a longer story, but it's as deep as it is long. It all gets deeper here as well as longer.
Yeah.
And it's given the space it is because at so many levels it is prophetic and of what the whole rest of the Bible is going to be about.
And this is the beauty that I think so many people. I don't want to sound judgmental here, but there is such a depth and richness in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
With these stories.
Yeah.
That doesn't come. This is going to sound bad. Like, my goodness, we do a podcast where we try to cover this stuff in 45 minutes.
I know, yeah.
But I just want to encourage people: if you're new to the faith, if you're new to the Christian walk, if God wills it, and you get to live a long time in the Christian faith, keep coming back. Keep going back to the Word, because God will reward you as you keep going back into these stories, because the stories end up becoming your story as well. And you see so much of yourself in the Scripture, in these stories. It keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. Wait a minute. Hang on, it's supposed to be Matt finishing with a beautiful phrase, a flowery sentence, or a great thought at the end of the podcast. What? It's not supposed to be me. Matthew put me on the spot there at the end. Hopefully I didn't let you down too much as we wrap up this story of Joseph. Listen, next week is it. The final episode on the book of Genesis is next week. One more to go. It feels like we've been in the book of Genesis for so long. It's going to be strange to get out of it. Hey, listen, I've got a link I want you to go to, all right? I've got a link I want you to go to. ratethispodcast.com/Thrive Deeper. That's ratethispodcast.com/Thrive Deeper. That's a really great way for you to be able to rate the podcast that you're listening to right now 5 stars, and it gets us across more ears out there on the different platforms. So that's ratethispodcast.com/Thrive Deeper. I'll see you next week for Thrive Deeper.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Thrive Deeper. Matthew and DJ would love to hear your questions and comments about what you are reading in God's Word and in Thrive. The easiest way to do that is to head over to thrivetoday.net.au. Thrive Deeper is on Facebook. Just search and like Thrive Today page for all our latest news. Until next week, our prayer is that this podcast will inspire you to read God's Word and thrive.